Natalie is a doctor of Chinese medicine and acupuncture. She's also specialises in natural fertility. She does writing and education. She's the owner of the Pagoda Tree in Melbourne, which specialises in natural fertility and women's health. So Natalie integrates Western medical approach with a alternative therapies measure, and also incorporates Chinese medicine to bring about a holistic natural fertility treatment. Nat has been featured in many publications, including Marie Claire and Cosmopolitan, as well as lots of TV appearances. She's not that recently, but she has an ebook called Fertilise Yourself, and has recently been involved in putting together a recipe book called Eat Fat, Get Thin.
Eat Fat, Be Thin.
Be Thin. Eat Fat, Be Thin. So please welcome Natalie.
Thank you. I just have to get technical for a second, which is not my strength, so are you going to do it for me?
The blind leading the blind.
Whilst we're doing that, here we go. Are we good? Okay. Whilst we're doing that, I just want to let you know that the F word, the fertility word, don't run out of the room. It's nothing to be afraid of, especially a lot of men seem to duck for cover when they hear that word. So I'm going to nut through the ins and outs of it, but it's certainly, that's fine, I'll fix it.
You can use the arrows if you like, or just hit that.
Okay, great, thank you. It's certainly something that a lot of people run the other way. When I mention that I'm a natural fertility specialist, I get those sort of, or don't talk to me, I'm not ready for the baby. And what I want to talk to you about mostly today is that fertility isn't about babies. It's an extension of your health. It's being, as healthy as you can be, and to be able to go forward and have babies if that's what you choose. And if you don't, well, that's okay. It just means you've got a really well-functioning body. So I wrote Fertilise Yourself when I was on maternity leave, because that's what you do when you're bored. You write books. I'm fortunate. I have two beautiful children who both love an afternoon sleep. So in that spare time that I had, I sort of put together this book, and basically it's designed to help you to fuel your body to get yourself fighting fertility fit. So today, just a brief outline, I'm just going to share with you a little bit about where that came from, talk to you about your fertile body, because there is, there's the diet aspect, but there's also the life aspect, and that's just as much key as we've seen today as what you fuel yourself with in terms of food, and then obviously go on to talk about food for fertility. But your fertility is an extension of your health. Like I said, if you are healthy, you are fertile. And I had something up, I'm also, I'm a producer of a new show called Health Talks, and I don't know if anyone's seen that, but anyway, reason I'm telling you this is I put up a segment a few weeks ago, and I spoke about that if you're healthy, then you'll be fertile. And someone wrote back and said, well, I disagree, I'm really healthy and I'm not fertile. And I have to say that, in those instances where we look and we say, well, my body's failing me, I'm not fertile, I'd actually turn around and say, let's look at what your body's telling you. Why are you not fertile? It's not about the fact that your body is failing you, it's about we need to find why that's happening. And it's not always easy, I'll admit that, but it's also finding someone that can help you to understand that a little bit better, which is why I wrote this. So it's been 10 years that I've been practicing for now, and 10 years ago I vowed never ever to touch women's health. And here I am today, a natural fertility specialist, so that kind of came back and bit me. But it was, one of those things that was too hard, and hormones are tricky. You're dealing with people that are emotional, and it's hard to attain. They don't know what to do, and so I set out to give the people what they want. I was having this influx of women in the clinic, whether they were coming for IVF or for natural fertility, and I had to adjust what I thought was my I wanted to treat gut issues is what I wanted to do, which I'm still doing, but that's what I wanted to do, and it chose me. I didn't really choose that. So I studied at Vic Uni, I also studied at La Trobe, and then I went on to study acupuncture, and I got to the end of that, and I was kind of like, now I need to go and branch out into fertility, and I think a lot of that has come with experience, not necessarily through things that I've learnt. And so, these same questions kept coming up on repeat. How do I be more fertile? What do I need to do? And I was getting questions from Canada, and I was getting questions from the UK, and I thought, okay, well, I need to put this all somewhere in a guide that people can access it really easily. So what I want people to realise is that everybody benefits when you eat for not just fertility, but as we've seen today, you know, eat to better our health. And so everyone's going to benefit from eating for fertility, so to speak, because we're balancing our hormones. This means that, you know, pregnant women are going to benefit from eating this way, breastfeeding women, men too that need to, you know, get their reproductive organs on track, and there are a lot of, you know, male reproductive issues out there as well, and we'll talk about that shortly. So when we talk about building your fertile body, I say to people, and this is just a rough guide, that you subtract 100 from your height, and that gives you your fertile weight. Now, if I do that for myself, that's 56 kilos, which for me is probably a little bit heavy. But when we're talking about being fertile, we're not talking about necessarily our ideal weight, which is what we, you know, are sort of, we feel like we want to look like. We're talking about being at healthy, fertile weight to be able to have everything we need to fuel that our reproductive organs. So, you know, this can be tricky, especially when I have women that come and they are quite underweight, to encourage them to put on weight. But equally, someone who is overweight, we're more than happy to lose weight to be more fertile. So this is sort of a rough guide of what I use in the clinic and what I talk about in the book. And it gives us, you know, a fairly good indication as to what your body wants to be at to be fertile. And weight is key for fertility. So as little as 10% body loss or gain, weight loss or gain, will make a massive difference. And for women that are underweight, this is because the excretion of the gonadotropin-releasing hormone will be abnormal in quality and timing. So they very often see their menstrual cycle come very, it's a 2-week thing. They get their period every 2 weeks, and that's all great in theory, but you're not fertile if you're getting, I mean, you're not infertile, but you're not actually fertile at that time if you are seeing a period every 2 weeks. And the same with women that are overweight. They'll either not see periods or they'll be quite sporadic. And again, we need to encourage their hormones to start doing the right things to fuel them better to be more fertile. So as I just continue to talk about these lifestyle things, and I will get onto food in just a second, there are some other really key things I talk about in the book. Sleep is a really big thing for being more fertile and for your hormones, and that's because when you're not getting an adequate amount of sleep, it affects your prolactin, which then goes on to affect your ovulation. So I say to people, you need to be in bed, you know, 11 o'clock maximum, get a good night's sleep, and you know, you're much more likely to then go on and at least have what you need and ovulate at the right time. Toxins are really not doing anyone any favours, but especially when it comes to male fertility, they'll skew the sperm. They'll, you know, 2 heads or 2 tails or whatever that might be. But we're seeing I've been back from maternity leave now for 6 months, and in that time I have seen 1 normal semen analysis. So it just goes, and I see a lot of people, but it just goes to show that you know, what is normal is not actually normal anymore. I get a semen analysis into the clinic, and a patient will say to me, "Oh, isn't it great? My fertility specialist said it's spot on." And I'm like, "There's 4% doing the right thing. What are the other 96% doing?" It's not enough. It's enough it's maybe enough if you're going down the assisted conception route, but it's a numbers game. You need the numbers. So let's improve that, you know, as much as we possibly can to get that outcome. And it's very easy to fix male reproductive health. It does take time, but it is easy. So it's something that we want to do regardless of the road of IVF or natural fertility. Stress is another big thing, and that again affects our hormones. And I want to bring up sex, which sounds, I mean, all the men go, yeah, and the women kind of go, oh, again. But we need to be having regular sex. It's not timed. It's not, oh, we did it 2 days ago, we've got to do it today. It just needs to be regular. And that's because you love your partner, not because you want to have a baby. I mean, that might be part of it. But reality is it doesn't take much to make a baby. You don't have to have loads of sex to have a baby and make a baby. But to be healthy and to have a healthy reproductive system, you do need to be having regular sex. And I suspect that was part of why 100 years ago fertility rates were different. They didn't have the internet, they didn't have television, they didn't work till 10 o'clock at night, and I'm guilty of this too, but you know, they had more time for these extracurricular activities. So that's really important in increasing blood flow and helping to regulate your hormones as well. And your emotional health is a massive thing as well. And we see this time and time again. I find that perfectionists find it very hard to fall pregnant, and that's because A, they're not in control, but B, they like everything to be perfect. And I especially see this with women that take pride, obviously, in their job, and you know that doesn't necessarily mean you're a perfectionist. But the end point is getting them to quit their job, and a couple of months later they're pregnant. And it's the same as, you know, hand it over to IVF and you fall pregnant just before you end up on IVF. And it's almost that emotional shift has happened. You've handed the problem over to somebody else. It's not your problem anymore. And, you know, I'm not saying that's always the case, but these little things add up to being something quite large. So we must consider them. When we look at food for fertility, or food for our hormonal health, I'm going to read this as an excerpt from my book, but I'm going to read this because I think it's pretty relevant. I suspect that our forefathers and mothers knew a whole lot more about nutrition intuitively than we give them credit for. Sure, they didn't have labs to nut down exactly what foods contained. Better still, it seems, they had a sound knowledge of food for medicine. They ate to fuel the body, to nourish and to heal. And, you know, we've been speaking a lot about this today already, but the thing is that they didn't rely on anything other than how they felt when they ate certain things, and they knew what worked because A, they were a product of their environment, and their environments were a lot healthier than ours are now, but they also ate for what was in season, and they were able to make this connection about food combinations and what worked well and what didn't. And so, you know, we've got a lot to go back to and unlearn and relearn, I think, in terms of how to best fuel our bodies. But how we eat will influence our hormones, and our sex hormones are made up of fats and proteins. And as we know, everyone has been on this low-fat bandwagon, and it has not done anyone any favours in terms of their reproductive health. So we need to get back to, you know, as we've been speaking about already today, reintroducing therapeutic fats, quality fats and proteins into every single meal. We also know that the genetic inheritance of the mother through her gut health, low-fat foods, as I've mentioned, and medications are leading to a majorly nutrition-deficient society, and that's affecting our fertility. And I don't have time to go into how the pill affects us today, but it is it would probably be the number one thing in the clinic that is affecting women's health, because it zaps your body nutritionally so far from where it should be. To recover is quite hard. So if that's something that you've been thinking about, you know, there's lots of research and there's lots of information on my blog, and I'll give you the details for that shortly. And meat protein is key to improving fertility. For the amino acids that it contains help us to build better hormones. And, you know, vegetarians do have a little bit of a harder time trying to make up for that. And sometimes they do have to, you know, change and start to introduce things like bone broths and ways to get that into their diet. So how do we implement this? As a rough guide for fertility, which is not probably too different from what we've been speaking about today, 50% of what we eat needs to be protein from animal and vegetables. And I say 30 to 50% quality carbohydrate and 30 to 50% therapeutic fats, just as a guide, is what I share with my patients. So we know that, as we've spoken, you know, gluten-free is key in terms of gut health, and, you know, our gut fuels our entire body, and our reproductive organs are kind of at the end of that. So, you know, if our gut health isn't great, our body will go, you know what, I can't reproduce right now. I'm going to just flick that switch off over there and focus on having a healthy heart and a healthy brain and whatever else, and making sure that blood flows great to those areas, and it doesn't benefit the reproductive organs, which is kind of clever, really. It's just protecting you, because if you are to fall pregnant and that's not working properly, you do have a higher chance of miscarriage. But equally, maybe the egg quality isn't great either. And I actually want to touch on that just quickly. I had someone come up to me before, and we were talking about the anti-Müllerian hormone test that's done. So if you're not sure what that is, they test for your ovarian reserve to find out how many eggs you've got left. Now, I don't know, this test is it's a bit of a fad, like a lot of tests are. And don't get me wrong, I love some tests, they can be great, but I'm finding this one particularly interesting because it's quite discouraging for women to come back and hear that they don't have many eggs left. Now, two things I see in the clinic is that this anti-Müllerian hormone number, after some time, usually about 3 months of treatment, changes, it increases, it gets back to being where it should be. It tells me two things. Well, I question two things. Are we born with all our eggs, or do we get more? Or, when the body's working better, does it put forward everything that it needs? And I think that it's possibly both of those things. But it is an interesting thing to know that, sometimes all the testing in the world won't give us the answers we actually need. Very low sugar or no sugar is, again, key for gut health and fertility, and limiting soy, which we've touched on today as well. But I had a patient last week, and I've been seeing her for a really long time, and I don't know why we'd never gotten to the point of soy. Turned out she was eating soy ice cream, soy milk, soy sausages. Didn't realise it was in her bread and everything else that she ate. There was more soy. Anyway, she's got major fertility issues, and she's not trying to have children, so it's not immediate issue, but she also doesn't really have a very healthy menstrual cycle, and those estrogens aren't doing her bodies any favour, so we had to cut that out, and I know it's going to be an immediate turnaround for her. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these foods today, but my top 10 fertile foods: eggs, avocados are awesome, and eggs are so easy. I had to comment on, I'm the expert on Sarah's blog this week for the I Quit Sugar program, and I had someone said, oh, what do I do for snacks? And I'm like, boil an egg and stick it in your bag. It's got its own packaging. It's awesome. You just got to be careful where you remove the shell, because it stinks. Someone will think you need to go to the bathroom. Green tea is excellent for fertile mucus. It helps to increase that, so does drinking lots of water. And then, your legumes, salmon, coconut butters, olives, again, are really great as well. So just as I wrap up, when we treat someone for fertility, for men it takes 90 to 120 days for fully new sperm to come back. Now, that's not all you need to do. You need to be gearing yourself for better fertility with high levels of antioxidants, having lots of sex to move out the dodgy ones, and gear your lifestyle, as I've spoken about, towards being more fertile. And for women, once we start to treat them and they start to eat this way and implement these ideas into their life, we know that they peak at around the 3-month mark. Now, what they do after that is kind of a bit of a mystery. They either stay and plateau, or sometimes it drops off a little bit. So, the body has a bit of a gear in the right direction, and then it gets a little bit lazy, I guess, or used to what's going on. Now, and like I said before, infertility isn't that the body is failing you. It may be a case of you failing to listen to what your body is saying to you. And to be more fertile with food, so we need to gear our lifestyle towards fertility. We need to increase fats and proteins, eliminate sugar to balance our hormones. And this will shift you to your more fertile weight. And remember, like I said before, that fertility is an extension of our health. So if we can eat well, we will be well. Thank you.